typically the one they have. There's an office phone number too, but for some reason mine got called a lot more when they had questions about materials and that type of thing. And then just checking in with the co-sponsor, making sure they're satisfied with what's going on, because they've invested so much in it during the week, so we want to make sure they're involved as much as they want to be. And then helping the campers once they're back, checking those campers in when they come back, making sure that they're making, one of the roles of the campers is to check in with me, and so then I can make sure that their progress on the site is actually being made. And so that if I need to reassign a crew, I know what crews need help. And then the campers have lights out at 11, except for Friday when they have it at midnight. And after that, we have like a staff meeting, and then it's a lot of our staff goes to bed, and the 4 of us summer staff are regrouping a lot of the times and finishing up tasks. And the end of the day for me could be anywhere from midnight to 3 a.m. one time. So it's a lot of minimal sleep. Wednesdays, the campers get a half day, and that means I got to sleep for half the day. So that's kind of the one relief day. So after camp, so this is the part that campers really don't see. So Friday night, like I mentioned, we pack up the Penske with all of our materials. During the pre-camp, we unloaded it. So we pack it all up, and the rule is the campers have to all be out of the program space. They can't see what we're doing. And I, looking back as a camper, never saw this happen. It was just magically gone in the morning. So if it's done correctly, the campers won't see that happening Friday night, but that's what we're doing. And then Saturday comes, and the campers are checking out with red shirts, so they have to check out of the room to make sure there's no damages and make sure it's still kind of clean. And then we restore the school building mostly to how we found it, or as much as they have asked us to do. And then we check out with one of the staff members and there's a bunch of paperwork they have to do to make sure we're checked out properly. And then we went to a restaurant and basically fell asleep on the table waiting for our hotel check-in time, because we normally got done by like 11:30, and check-in time typically wasn't until like 3. And then we checked into a hotel that was within probably the closest hotel, that's also the cheapest. So for some crews that was an hour drive because they were in that remote of an area, but for us it was always less than 20 minutes. And we check into the hotel and basically fall asleep. And I had our first camp, the 2 girls that were in my room, they slept for 24 hours straight, like without even like half waking up. They were just out. And then we have so that brings us through Sunday, and then we have until the following Wednesday to get to our next camp, and that's our only responsibility during that time. And so our office manager plans that travel time, but then we also find fun activities to do in between. As far as lodging goes, the group has a whole list of people that have volunteered to say, I will open up my home for summer staffers to come and stay at. And so we try to do that as much as possible because it saves group money, which means they give us more money later. But it's also a lot more enjoyable to stay in someone's home and have a home-cooked meal after camp week food, because camp food is even worse than school food. So it's nice to be in someone's home. I have a couple pictures here of just like, this is how tired. Spence was our program manager, and she was the most tired of all of us all the time. So that was just a picture after one of our camps. And then we actually, so one of our co-sponsors is a pilot, and so we got to go fly a plane. Like, he had his own plane, so we went to go fly that. So we each got a turn actually flying a plane. So, yeah.
Wow, jeez.
So this is just a little bit more about what I specifically did. So we all started in Colorado, and then I went to Green Bay, Wisconsin. Thomas was not very happy about that. But so each camp is unique. This was my first camp as a staff, so it was kind of like crazy. During setup week, I got yelled at by a mom, as like apparently she had like booked the gym and all of our program stuff was set up in the gym, and she had like 50 kids coming in to play basketball in the gym, and we're like, we don't know what you're talking about. And so she had like these 7-year-olds lifting up these giant speakers we have, and it was just like this huge mess, and everyone else was like going to get lunch, and I had stayed to do work, and it was a huge thing. So it started off interestingly, and then this is the camp I stayed up until 3 a.m. one night because there was like a health emergency, and I had a kid that needed to go home, so that means a youth leader had to go home, and they needed someone else to go with them, so I had 2 youth leaders that had to go home and come back, and so I had to do a whole bunch of like rearranging, and then our Penske truck also got a hole popped in the top of it, so we had to get a new Penske truck halfway through the week. So that was also an adventure. So that's just some of the pictures. So then from there, I went to Rushville, Indiana, and this was definitely the most chaotic camp. It was an amazing camp. We had an amazing co-sponsor that was just overly involved. They were basically like red shirts, but they weren't. During the pre-camp week, we have to pay for our own food, but they told us that they didn't want us to pay for any of our own food during that time because we're broke college kids. So they paid for every meal from Wednesday on until we got into camp week, and then we had our own food. And so this is kind of like the stats, so you can see the stats for that week. But for that week, we had 52 crews and 42 sites, and then we ended up adding a site that week, so we got 43 sites done. And so this is the one where we had our co-sponsor who was the pilot, so that's that picture. Let's see. Oh, this camp we also had, it was really hot, and the gym that we had our program in was not air conditioned, so we had tons of fans, but we had one kid faint, and then that kind of triggered a bunch of other kids fainting, and so we had several ambulances called.
Oh, jeez.
I don't remember the final total, but I think it was something like 6 throughout the whole week. We had one girl that just shouldn't have been there, and she had her alone. I think we had to call the ambulance like 3 times. It was like crazy. It was a crazy week. I had the cafeteria, the head cook was hiding food on us, so we didn't have enough food for the kids. Like we had we had tacos one night, and we had to cut the serving size in half so we could feed everyone. And then the next morning, the sloppy joes magically appeared. The missing sloppy joes magically appeared. So it was a crazy week, but it was also like the best staff we had, the best director that we had, and it was dealt with very calmly and collectively. So it was also the most amazing week, though the most chaotic week. So then from there, I went to Knoxville, Tennessee, and I apparently didn't learn how to avoid the camera or something during this week because there's no other pictures that I could find. But this week was awesome too. Our co-sponsor was very much hands-on on my part of things and on the site's part of things. He really wanted everything to get done, and so he was very pushy, but in a good way. So we had that, and then this week is the week I had a difficulty. I had a wonderful lady leading the cafeteria, but they weren't equipped for it. We were in a church. It was a larger church, but it was too small for the number of kids we had. And so we struggled. I was in the cafeteria like 90% of the time, just because we needed extra support there. And I had a lot of the red shirts were in the cafeteria 90% of the time, just because they needed that extra